everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say carpe diem, go after the things that you want in life. Something that I wanted to do this year was rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, but this time talk about it with other humans, which, is all of you, which has been a blast. But now we're up leveling this, and I'm getting a chance to talk with people who worked on this show about their time on the show. So before I get today's interview guest, a quick housekeeping item, but an important one. If you've never seen the show Halt and Catch Fire before and you want spoiler-free content, go check out the episode recaps. Those are spoiler-free up until the episode you're on in the episode count. These interviews, any interviews, could be spoiler-filled. We could bring up any detail from any season of the show, and that's particularly relevant for this conversation. So just be aware of that up front. But if you're sticking around, so glad to have you here because I'm very excited to talk with my guest for today, who is Wes Holland, who played Macky for 4 episodes in season 4. Welcome.
Thanks. So glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here and to get a chance to talk through season 4 shenanigans and all that good stuff. But, before we get into the season itself, okay, so you worked on the show Halt and Catch Fire. How did that happen? How did you get to this role?
So, it was the typical, my agent called and said, hey, we have an audition for a role. This is a network TV show and, we think you'd be a good fit for this role. And that's really how that happened. And I found out, actually, the funny story behind that is that later on, I found out they had another guy slotted for the role and he took a job in Florida. And that's how I kind of snuck in there. And I'm glad I did.
Well, his loss was your gain for sure. I mean, what
Right.
a cool role you got in this show. How much did you know about the show before you auditioned?
That's a great question. Not a lot, actually. So I made sure to do my research beforehand and go watch some previous episodes and, get a feel for the tone and just the rhythm of the show.
It's tricky, right? Because this show sort of switches up its tone every season. So if you go to research for a role, it's like, I still don't know what I'm going to get.
Exactly. You nailed it.
So, and with that in mind, look, I mean, you're coming in for the 4th and final season of a show. It's been running for a while, but it's also ending. But you're part of a group that's brand new, coming in for the first time. So that's a lot of things to go into that soup. And I'm wondering what the tone of the set felt like for you.
Sure. Well, kind of like you just said, it felt like a lot of things. It was fun. All of the people there were just amazing and awesome to work with. It's a little bittersweet for me because it was the last season of the show, and that was actually my first network booking that I had ever had. So, a little bittersweet there that, you just get started and then it ends, right? And but I mean, it was just a fantastic experience. And I still keep up with some of the people that were on the show with me today. So, no regrets.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's talk about your character a little bit. So Macky comes in to be part of the Comet team in season 4. We learn he's come from Gold's Gym. Joe throws shade on him right away. He says, you wouldn't believe it, but this guy's got an MBA. Except, look, Macky's the one who told Golds to launch a website to begin with. So Macky knew some stuff. How much of a backstory was there, or did you create for Macky to sort of give a broader picture of this person?
Sure. Yeah. So there was a general backstory. They didn't go into any deep detail. They just kind of described Macky and kind of who he was. And then from there, I'll be honest with you, it was there's a lot of me, Wes, and Macky. I'm a bit of a gym rat myself, but I also have a pre-med degree in biology, so I'm also a nerd. And, I think I identify with him a lot. I happen to also be a former college and professional football player. So, people saw me mostly as that jock, but didn't see the nerd side where, I was academically very strong as well. So, to me, I hear you. The shade thrown at Macky from Joe, but I don't see it as shade. I always enjoyed that. I always enjoyed surprising people and be like, oh yeah, sure, I'm a jock, but there's so much more to me than that. And um, it was, I don't know. I always see that as kind of an opportunity.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it may have been shade. That's okay. But you know, it's it's almost a compliment in him saying, "Hey, you wouldn't think this guy is bright, but he is bright." And so I think it's just the way you take it. But yeah, it's a lot of me in that character for sure.
As I'm talking with you, it really occurs to me because I'm just thinking about season 4, and there are actually a number of times where we're going to see Gordon and or Joe or both of them together sort of be like, yeah, you don't watch sports, or like, yeah, football. Like they give in fact, when they think about getting more Haleys to hire the team,
Right.
because she's so good with comedy, they're like, yeah, we need more Haleys. We need people who could talk about, and they both are like sports. Yeah, because they know
Yeah.
that's not an area that's their strong suit. So it's fun to see your character come in and sort of fill the entire gap, this
Of
very
that.
big gap.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Well, okay, so that brings me to a very relevant episode for you, 404,
Hmm.
which is Tanya and Nancy of all things. So first of all, we are going to, when we're introduced to Macky, we're going to see Macky and Risa having, that they've had this fight of like the Zagat's website and where it belongs in their categorization process. And we see them in the context of introducing Katie to the team as like their overall manager. So what do you think it was like for the surfers, or the obsessives as Joe calls them, in Comet before Katie came in?
You even kind of hear them mention it a little bit in the show, but the Wild West, that room would have been absolutely just wild before Katie, and probably not a lot of direction, just go 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 go. I mean it. You feel it in the show that they put that team together pretty quickly. They're like, hey, we need this. Let's get these people. Let's go. And we'll figure it out as we go. A lot of entrepreneurs, I feel, do the same thing. They figure it out as they go because time is money. So I think, they just compiled all of these very different people in a room and said, all right, here's your job, go do it. And yeah, the Wild West, I think, is the best way to describe that, and then they bring someone in to kind of organize that and give it more of a direction.
And looking at it from a 2024 standpoint, not only would it have been the Wild West for Comet, but it was the Wild West for the entire thing that you were doing, like the whole internet.
Exactly right.
So there would be no way to really know how quickly it was going to grow. It obviously grew very quickly. I think as somebody who can look at it with, at the time, like 2016 or 2017 eyes, how did that influence how you thought about the work that Comet was doing?
Well, yeah. So I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit of myself. So it was fun to be in an atmosphere where well, one, you're back in time a little bit, so that's fun. And I am a '90s kid. I grew up in the '90s, so one, just seeing all those outfits and all of I loved it. I was like, this is fantastic. But they even did a great job of bringing the energy of a startup company, right? I've been involved, indirectly or directly with startups before, and they did a great job of making it feel just like that. And it is a high energy, high motivation, always excitement, keeping people up, that energy up. And I think they did a great job there. And so it really was just a lot of fun, and felt it. Sometimes at times I forgot that I was an actor, and I felt like I was actually in the '90s in a startup. Let's go. Let's get Comet off the ground, or let's get them to be the number one. Let's get bought out by AOL or whoever, like let's go do this thing. And then, yeah, it was cool. And they, being surrounded by such talented actors, sometimes it really felt very real.
Mm, mm. You know, the weekly website indexing content, a lot of stuff happens for your team in this first episode where we
Yeah.
see you all, and you have this weekly website indexing contest. It was neck and neck, but in the end, Feel the Burn just barely loses out to the pot
Mm-hmm.
stickers. I'm sure it still smarts. Tell me about shooting that scene, which
Yeah.
looks so chaotic.
Yeah. And, it, again, talking about the energy, it was a lot of fun. They were just a lot of back and forth. We had the augas, and then they had their little yay us little thing going on. And, that was fun to shoot because we were just laughing in between takes, and it just, it's got a little bit of goofing around, obviously organization and direction, but it was fun. We had our own little battle to see who could get louder. So, and as we all got to know each other on set, it became even more fun because we really were just playing, and playing make believe with each other, but getting to do it on a professional setting. So sometimes I think we forget that, we are playing make believe, but and we should have fun with that sometimes. Don't take it so serious all the time.
I mean, I don't know how you don't in a scene where you've got like surfboard trophies and pies in the face, like, and so much chaos. It's like, how do you get too professional with that,
And don't forget, a lot of times multiple takes of pies in the face or milkshakes thrown or whatever. So it can get wild.
Oh, that's interesting. I should have been thinking about that when I covered that episode, because it's like he cannot get that window clean for the life of him. Like,
Right.
and yeah, I do want that. I can imagine it took some time to get like the splat the way you wanted it.
Yeah, there's practice not actually throwing it, and then there's actually throwing it, and sometimes it goes just right, and sometimes it doesn't.
And if it doesn't, to clean that up
Yep.
and start
Yep.
over.
Yep. If I remember though, that milkshake throw, that was obviously, practicing first and not actually throwing it. I think she nailed it the first time on that one, which
Whoa.
was, hey, it was awesome.
Nice. Oh my goodness. You know, again, huge episode, this first one you're in. We have the whole thing set around Tanya and Nancy, which is, Mackie's territory, really.
Right.
We're in the sports category. You know, uh, it really hits, like, deep diving on that episode really made me go back and revisit that particular drama, that news storyline that happened in real
Right.
life. And in this case, you have a whole episode really built around a major cultural touchstone. And you've already pointed out, like, there are some 90s elements that you were enjoying on set. So what were some of the other cultural touches from that time period that jumped out to you, whether it was in dialogue or outfits or props or whatever comes to mind?
Yeah, so definitely outfits, especially Mackie's outfits. Those were really fun. I'd have like the almost, I don't know, man. It's like MC Hammer type pants on, like, so definitely outfits. Dialogue for sure. Some of the phrasing was definitely, rad, I guess you could say, or no one says auga anymore. Those type of things. That was fun. But I will say that props did a fantastic job of putting, those vintage type 90s things on set. And I was nerding out a little bit because there was some stuff I used to have as a kid on some of the desks in the office. I was like, oh, this is so cool. This brings me back. It brings me so far back to just my childhood. So,
Anything particular jump out to you that you remember?
oh man, there was it was like a cup holder, like coffee cup, but it wasn't a real coffee cup. And it had, like Rocco's Modern World or Modern Life. What's that cartoon? What was that cartoon called? Rocco's something or other. It was one of my cartoons that I watched as a kid. Rocco's Modern Life or Rocco's Modern World. I can't remember the name of it now. Jeez, I'm getting old.
Well, if you keep talking, I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, so it was a pencil holder in the shape of
Rocco's Modern Life.
Thank you, Rocco's Modern Life. But it was a pencil holder in the shape of a coffee cup with Rocco's Modern Life, but it wasn't a coffee cup. Like it wasn't the material. You would not want to use that as a coffee cup. And I specifically remember that as a kid. I don't know why. I don't know why that sparks so many things. And of course, there's some vintage sports helmets and things like that too from back in the day, NFL teams and whatnot. So it
Cool.
was, yeah, but definitely that cup. I don't know why that cup. No idea.
I hadn't heard of Rocco's Modern Life. They're adorable. I wish I had seen the show. I would have loved these characters.
It's a little kooky. I'm not gonna lie, but it was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
Aw, so many cool things there. We get a whole scene where some of the folks from Comet go back to Joe's apartment to watch figure skating at the Olympics.
Mhm.
And they have a whole, I guess they're betting on, or they've got preferences on Tanya or Nancy. And you know, at one point, Joe asks Macky, "How fast do you think they're going?" And Macky has no idea, and that struck me as something that maybe wouldn't have been scripted. Do you remember if there was much ad-libbing happening during that scene?
That was pretty much all ad-libbing. So that was just Wes saying, "I have no idea. I don't know how fast they're going. I don't know." Like, yeah, we did throw a few takes in. There was that weren't used, obviously, but that particular one, you saw that reaction of Macky just going, "That was me, 100% me." And of course, Lee Pace Joe is extremely talented, so he can ad lib off the cuff whatever he wants to do. I mean, that's that. Working with him, you see the next level of the of talent for sure. So there was another one where they actually said, "Hey, say this to Joe," and Joe's going to be like really surprised. But I don't think they told Lee either. He is as good of an actor as I know he is to be, or I don't think they told him this, but they said, "Mention her Vera Wang dress," because Macky would never say something like that. Like that doesn't come from Macky. So I did, and of course Joe was like, "What?" Like he looked at me like, "What?" Say what now? Like really surprised. So I don't know if they actually mentioned that to Lee and that was his genuine reaction or not, but it was it was funny. That was actually, I wish they would have used that one because it was pretty funny.
I love going back and watching some of these scenes really closely to watch specific people in them, because it becomes clear, like, there's no way they scripted this.
Right.
It must have been a decision on the day. It's so fun that they had all these like alt lines that they were throwing out at you guys.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and at the end of that scene, I had never noticed it before, but when we're just sort of in the apartment following Cam back into the room, who's got this very dark energy about her now, we can hear the rest of the folks in the living room cheering, and we hear one solitary auga. Was that you, or was that like voiced? Was that like dubbed in?
No, it wasn't me. It was one of us. But I can't remember who it was. It was one of the guys in the room, and I cannot remember who did that. And now that I'm thinking about it, was it me? I don't think so though. If I remember, it might have been. It might have. No, I can't remember.
Because when I look at the people in that room, I don't know that any. I think all the rest of them are on pot stickers.
Yeah, and I think you're right.
Or maybe I'm just planting memories in your head that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I can't remember, to be honest with you, but I do specifically remember hearing it,
Yeah.
and being like, "Wait a minute," like that. I remember that. I remember that. Yeah. So it was that, and of course, going and watching the episodes, you giggle because what that is, right? And you're like, "Wait a minute, that wasn't supposed to be there." Like it was kind of funny. But yeah, I wish for the life of me I could remember who did that. I can't. I don't think it was me though, but not unlike me to do something like that. Also,
it could have been you.
Could have been, and also definitely not scripted. So,
yeah, that scene, more so than other scenes, it felt like a scene that could have had I mean, I guess maybe you could say the same thing about the weekly website indexing contest as well, but that's a smaller, more intimate scene than that, and it felt there was this energy, like people are just saying stuff and we're just going to see what makes it into the final cut.
yeah, and I remember that being the very last shot of the day. So, it was like, hey, let's have a little fun here. We're watching that, Nancy and Tanya, but that's not actually on the TV. Where that's where our acting comes into play a little bit. But it's yeah, there's a lot of ad libbing. We did several takes of that. I wish like in like bloopers or something they would show some of that, because that's the most fun time when you kind of just get to just go and see what happens.
Did you remember that incident from when it happened in real time?
A little. I was young, but
Yeah.
I'm so infamous. I mean, and they've made so many Netflix documentaries and stuff on it. I almost feel like I remember it, but I was young. Let's see, that was in what, 90, 97,
Four,
94?
94, yeah.
Okay, 94. So I would have been 5, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Super young.
I do remember, but what does a 5-year-old know about that?
You probably not a lot. Yeah, I think I was 11 at that point. So I do have a memory. I have maybe a clearer memory of it, but it's cool that even if you were 5 at that time, like there was such a strong impression of it. It was such a wacky thing to happen.
It was. I think I remember maybe my parents' reactions to it more than even my own, because I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew somebody hurt somebody and they were skaters. And as a 5-year-old, you're like, okay, time to
Yeah.
go play outside. Because in the '90s, what did you do? You went and played outside, and you went to your neighbor's house and you disappeared for the whole day, and then came back when the street lights came on. So
Exactly.
just a
Yeah.
different time, different time.
So true. You said a little bit about this in a previous answer, but tell us a bit more about working with Lee Pace.
Oh man, he's another level, to be honest with you. Again, like I said, my first network booking, so getting to work with that caliber of an artist, for me specifically, and this kind of stuff motivates me a lot. But I saw a huge disparity in my talent and his, and that didn't discourage me at all. I was just like, oh man, there's still a lot of work to be done if I want to be, at that kind of level, because he is just really good. I mean, it's even hard to explain how good. I was already a fan, but just seeing him work in person, and just being able to turn that character on, and bring him to life was something incredible to watch. Also, he's extremely tall. That threw me off. You don't realize how tall he is until you meet him in person, and you're like, hello. You're like, whoa, this guy is very tall. So it'll throw you off at first, for sure.
Hmm. Let's go to the next episode. So in 406, we get to A Connection Is Made. That's the name of the episode. The Comet team is shooting footage for a commercial. Mm-hmm. Joe is interviewing everybody about what they think of when they hear the word internet. We get a few responses at first, and then we get a whole series of people who say your answer, and your answer is porn. This this scene, it's shot differently. It's almost documentary style. So tell us a bit about this scene, whether that's like technical stuff that you remember, or
Sure.
Those answers you all were coming up with. What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, so they did go around with they didn't have the big boom camera. They went around with a smaller camera, documentary style, and asked us those questions. And then obviously we had a few different answers. I can't remember all of them at the time, but looks like they settled on porn. And that they would just go to, let's say, me, and then they'd go to Kate Nealon, Risa, and then we'd all just kind of just be sitting around and as waiting for them to say cut, so we could all giggle and laugh as we heard each other's answers. We knew obviously the answers were coming, but that's how they did it. They just bounced around and put the camera right on your face, documentary style, and did it that way. And obviously we all had the most fun when we all said porn. There were other things, but no, that was, again, I mean, the show was fun. It was just good energy the whole time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, like to think about that being the most popular answer, because access to porn, I guess, changed a lot with the internet. So like,
yeah,
it seems funny, but it's also like very real. That would be top of mind for so many people. In 409, which was Search, totally different energy in this episode. Obviously, we're coming off of Gordon's death. The team is watching the finished commercial together. It has a spot from Gordon in it, but Gordon's no longer there to see it. Um, this is all about team reactions. What was it like filming on this day in the dark, pretty much,
Right.
with this reaction shot?
Yeah. So, there's a couple of shots that day. So, there's that particular shot, which is obviously the energy in the room just goes and tanks. You're mourning the loss of Gordon, right? But some other shots were a little higher energy that day. So that day kind of felt like this, just up and down. Again, still fun to get to play in those different scenarios. But I would say, just generally speaking, we had some higher energy shots and some lower energy shots, and you just had to. They did a great job of directing us and saying, "Hey, now I know we just came off of this. Just understand this is the premise of this scene. You're mourning the loss of someone now. Let's bring that energy back down. We're gonna darken the room. All of those things." So I enjoyed the direction in that show. They did a great job just all the way through.
For you as an actor, when you have scenes that feel high energy or low energy, how much does that impact you after you've wrapped for the day?
It can exhaust you. Absolutely. I will say the better the team you have around you, the easier that is. And that was an incredible cast and crew and team. So it made it much, much easier. And some of those days are long. I mean, you're going, many, many hours sometimes trying to get as many shots in as you can. So with the long days and sometimes, with set change, you can be sitting around for a while before you shoot the next scene. So it can be grueling sometimes, a little exhausting, but that particular set it made it as easy as possible.
Yeah. Susanna Skaggs, let's talk a bit about her because she makes a big splash on this show. She's as older Haley. Tell us about working with Susanna.
Yeah, so she was, a young lady and extremely talented. Once again, someone who's highly talented when you meet them. So she was one of those, and I was like, wow, you're young and you're just really good. And she's in person, extremely, extremely sweet, awesome to be around, had fun with us. I think she was just having a blast. I mean, I think, gosh, maybe 15, 16 at the time when she was shooting that. So just a teenager in high school on a network TV show, friggin' star, right? But none of it got to her head. Still always just the coolest and sweet. And I enjoyed working with her, but again, highly, highly talented.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so impressive to see. A lot of shows don't try to give that much material to, and most adult shows don't try to do that, to give that much material to somebody who's that young. And boy, they piled a lot.
Did, and she nailed it too. She nailed it. I mean, I'm telling, sometimes some of her scenes were, 1 to 2 takes, boom, done. I mean, she was, I don't know what she's doing now, but if she's still acting, I hope so, because I mean, she was good. Really, really good.
This is so good to hear. The Office does seem certainly a lot darker and quieter in 409. So what were some, and you mentioned how well directed this show was. So, what were some of the things that you were all doing, or were happening within the tone and the set deck to make it feel like a darker and moodier and mourning place?
Yeah. I would say, from what I can remember, between those scenes, there was not a lot of, chatting or hanging out. In between like higher energy scenes, we'd all just be joking around or chatting. We kept the energy low, and I think rightfully so, to make it realistic when we were filming. So I would just say, in between those shots, we were also just quiet, not really saying much. Trying to keep. Some of us had tears flowing, so it's hard to keep those going if you're in the background, just kind of joking around while you're waiting on your shot. So it I would say just it was an concerted effort as a group to keep the energy low between those scenes.
And obviously we're talking about the passing of Gordon, but Scoot McNairy, talk about him as an actor.
Yeah, so funny enough, I didn't get to have a ton of interaction with him, but I did in the makeup trailer, and he's a funny guy. He's really funny, really welcoming. Because I met him, my most interaction was on the first day of shooting for me. So we were in the makeup trailer, and he was just in there at the same time, joking around with the crew, me, everybody else in there, saying welcome to me and anybody else that was joining for the first time that day. And really nice guy, and again, highly talented, super talented, and you see what it takes to be a star of a show like that. I mean, it's I can't say good enough things, because they really are just really good at what they do.
Mm. Let's look at the last episode that you were in, which is also the series finale. We have 410, 10 of Swords. We see Yahoo is now on the Netscape toolbar, which signals the upcoming death of Comet. It's going to put Comet out of business. The team is clearing out of the office. You're one of the people that we see, carrying a box out of the office. What do you think the future held for Macky?
I'd like to think that Macky did just fine. So don't forget, Macky has an MBA, so he's entrepreneurial. I'd like to think in my head, I thought about that as the show wrapped up. I'd like to think he went on to, start his own fitness business, and with his knowledge, his MBA knowledge and technical knowledge, and he went on to create, who knows, the Equinox gym or something, or some online fitness guru. Who knows, or he could have gone on. Either way, with an MBA and an entrepreneurial mindset, I think Macky was just fine.
That feels right, especially if we want, in your first episode that we saw you in, like when we learned that you had convinced Golds to create a website to begin with, like Macky has his finger on the pulse, kind of in a way that Joe did through the series. Like he was landing on the right ideas, it seems like. So I like your take on this.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Like I said, I see a lot of myself in Macky, and I've left companies and gone on to do my own thing, and jump into different businesses, and I'm just fine.
Yeah.
There's ups and downs in life, and I think Macky had probably, or he seemed like he had a pretty good mindset on life in general, and seeing opportunities and having a finger on the pulse of business. And yeah, I think he walked out of there and went on to do big things.
Yeah, landed on his feet. For you working on this show, what are some of the most memorable moments for you?
Well, obviously getting to work with Lee Pace, Scoot McNairy, Mackenzie Davis, that was the stars of the show. So that was always a treat, right? So, but really and truly, the relationships I made with my co-star friends, Melanie Newby, Rob Ranchow, Jim Namcom, Kate Nealon, Adam Bucci, we were all part of that little Comet team, but we actually got to know each other on the set and off the set. At that time, I was also a personal trainer, and I trained a few of them in my gym. So, we really got to know each other personally, and we still keep up with each other on social media, and, message each other every now and then and see how they're doing. So, it's that's the most memorable for me. I enjoy that part of the work the most, is new relationships with good people, and there were a lot of good people on that set. So that part I loved the most.
It's so nice to hear that the team, the band is still together. Everybody, like the team is still connected. It's so good.
Doing all kinds of different things now, but still talk to each other. Absolutely.
Your work on this show was one of the first acting credits I see for you on IMDb. What are some things that you learned for your craft by working on Halt and Catch Fire?
One, that I had a lot of work to do with all of those talented people around me, but also, not to get too specific, but there's this thing called imposter syndrome, where you don't think you're good enough. And, but you just take a step back and you go, hey, I can always get better, but I'm here with these very talented people. I'm here for a reason. They chose me to be here as well. So having that confidence, to step in there and know that your choices that you're making in that role are valid, and that you're there for a reason. So you're talented enough to keep up with those people. And as far as craft goes, just as anything else, sharpen your tool. Always be sharpening your tool. Now, that doesn't always mean, being on a network television show. That could be public speaking. That could be, anything like that. Anything adjacent to the craft can sharpen your tools. I'm, in the corporate world now, and I can't tell you how many acting tools I use in the corporate world, and corporate tools I use when I still, do dabble in some acting stuff. So, there's a lot of things that can apply. So, and as you said, you're a public speaker. That comes in handy big time.
Well, and I can relate to that because I've done some improv comedy. So like as a speaker, you can definitely see that I've done some improv comedy as a public speaker.
Right.
And I think those things really do. It's sometimes many tools in your tool belt that add to it. So it's fun to see that you think about how everything relates and connects. And for you, it all is part of building.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, in life experience in general,
Mm-hmm.
things to pull from that happen in your life. Sometimes you can, let's say I'll use Susanna, highly talented, 15, 16 years old, doesn't have as much life experience to pull from as you get going with certain scenes that may be a little bit more in depth. And so she did a great job. So but just as an example, as you get older and you live your life and you experience different things in life, you can use that in your craft, and it comes off as more genuine because, well, it actually happened. So you kind of take yourself back to that.
Yeah. Is there anybody else you've been able to shout out a number of people that you worked
Sure.
with here, but is there anybody else that we maybe missed that you wanted to make sure you acknowledge them here, maybe in front of or behind the camera, a crew, whoever comes to mind for you? Obviously we've gotten to mention some people on the Comet team itself, but
Sure. Yeah. Did I say Kate Nealand as well, who played
you
Risa?
mentioned her briefly. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. She was another. Oh my goodness. Highly talented, extremely sweet and nice. Enjoyed spending time with her as well, working with her. Um, I wish I would have gotten to know some of the crew more, but it's pretty high flying on set, and you just spend more time with who you're working with directly. But in my passing, I would love to just shout out that entire crew, anyone who worked on that crew, because everyone was so pleasant and so awesome to work with, and it was just really cool.
Amazing. So I don't even know how to phrase this question anymore because it's been such a weird time in your industry. So I don't know. You can plug anything that you want here. It could be something you've done recently, something you did a long time ago. It could be, you're in a different industry as well right now. What do you want to plug?
Wow. Okay.
It
Yeah.
used to be like, oh, what's coming out? What are you up to now? But now like I just can't. So
No, I hear you. No, I get it. I get it. So, it's funny. It's just really good timing. So I just jumped on some comedy skits with a local comedian in Atlanta, who does stuff on Instagram and YouTube. His name's Daryl Vega, and he is absolutely hilarious. And we've become buddies, and he uses me in some of his skits. And what he specializes in is making those skits look real, like it's actually happened. And his character is just being absolutely absurd. And no one would really put up with this guy in real life. I mean, it's almost like interacting with Mr. Bean. But he's not Mr. Bean. He's got a different kind of character, but absurd nonetheless in the things that he says and does. And so you're just interacting with him. And I'll be honest with you, once again, it's just me. There's not much of a script. I'm looking at him and I'm going and reacting to what he does. He a lot of times doesn't tell me what he's doing beforehand. So it's just Wes reacting to his absurdity. So I guess I would plug Daryl. We've had a good time filming a couple of things, and they've they've actually taken off for them, which I'm glad. I I'm actually in the corporate world now. I work in security technology, so I do acting on the side because I love it. I love the craft and I enjoy it, but it's not what I do full time anymore. So, um, getting to do that with friends and making new friends and just here and there and shooting on the weekends or at the end of the week, I feel like that's the essence of the craft, because now you're not thinking about it as I need to do this because I need to make some money and pay my bills. It's just pure doing it because you love it. And I'm thoroughly enjoying that.
You're in a good city for it as well.
I agree.
The industry in Atlanta has changed so much since you started.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
certainly building a lot and booming as you were getting into it, I think. And The Walking Dead probably helped a lot with that too. But
It
yeah,
did. It did.
wow.
And a lot of things, they just, Georgia did a great job of throwing those tax credits to the production companies. And so everything just started flooding in. It was so much work. We didn't know what to do with it first, to be honest with you. We were all just like, okay, here we go. Let's go. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been such a blast to talk with you today about this show. Thank you so much for taking some time and
Thank you.
reminiscing about *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually really enjoyed talking with you and reminiscing. It's a good trip down memory lane.
Amazing. And to everybody who's watching this, thank you for watching, and go out there and watch *Halt and Catch Fire*. Bye, everyone.